Whitley Strieber, and you're listening to My Alien Life.
And I'd already, since 79, I could tell the difference between, lights in the sky or photos of models and the kind of stuff that Billy Meier was publishing beginning in 75 there. With other things in society where we are just so off the rails and everything is rolling along the way Billy Meier has been predicting it for decades, and people just cluelessly plunging ahead into these situations that are, in every sense, not boding well. For the first time in 2000, I meet Meier. In 2004, I said, I really would like to represent you, and what I'd like to do is represent the material the way you publish it, the way you want it, with just a couple conditions. And the conditions would be these. Number one, I wouldn't ask you for any money. We don't pay each other, so that I can do it voluntarily. And I also want to just say that if I don't know if something is true, I won't have to say it is. And if I disagree with something, I'm free to say, he says, well, of course,
My Alien Life is recorded high atop the Northern Rocky Mountains and is heard all over the world, and you can listen everywhere fine podcasts are found. My website is www.myalienlifepodcast.com. There you'll find links to every episode, stories, photos, and much more. I'm your host, Cam Logan. This is My Alien Life, and the podcast starts right now.
My Alien Life Podcast.
Three, two.
In the studio tonight, a voice of UFOlogy and an expert on the experiences of Billy Meier, who has been part of the UFO community for decades. Please like, subscribe, and follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts. We're going to talk with Michael Horn and much more coming right up on My Alien Life. Michael, how are you?
Well, Cam, I am. I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking, as they say. And so I will ask of you. And how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to have you here. I'm glad to be anywhere tonight. So, as we were discussing earlier, we had a wind chill of 70 below zero today. I'm not sure what the actual temperature is, but it didn't really matter. It's been that way for a week, and you're a little warmer tonight.
Yeah. That's a little nippy for, we wouldn't quite hit that where I live. And as I said before, yes, I've experienced that in Chicago growing up. And in Chicago, we were close to a lake, and the wind coming in and coming off that lake would get down, way down there. I think it was something in that neighborhood that was the coldest I had experienced there.
Yeah, I noticed somebody was posting today freezing rain in Texas. So the Texans would hate that. I mean, I would hate that.
Yeah.
That's the reason they went to Texas in the first place. So what's new with you? How have you been? We're going to jump into talking about whatever we're going to talk about tonight. But, have you been out and about? Have you been able to get out and talk to people, or are you shut in like many Americans are, or people around the world for that matter?
Well, we choose to, stay kind of sequestered and closed in a bit just for the sake of safety. And we are able to get out. Today, as a matter of fact, was a day that we decided to go down what's called Oak Canyon towards Sedona. And the water was running from the melting snow, so that the streams down there was really, a beautiful thing to observe. The temperatures had gotten up into the upper 50s and actually I think low 60s. We had just had, a week or 10 days ago, whatever, we had a couple feet of snow. And even when it's cold here, I don't consider it very cold. I think the coldest I've experienced in northern Arizona is about 4 degrees, 8 degrees, somewhere there. But it's mild compared to growing up in Chicago because, again, the wind chill in Chicago is pretty great because of the way it comes off of Lake Michigan and the humidity there. We're in a very dry area. So overall, when we get out, if we want to take a walk through a forest or something, we can. And I really enjoy that freedom. We always have masks with us, of course. But there aren't that many people that we're, encountering. And I'm glad about that because this is a highly contagious disease. And people here seem to be taking it a bit more seriously, although the state as a whole is a tragic mess. But yeah, we're doing okay.
Yeah. So I've followed your story for a while, and I've known about you for quite a while, and missed a couple opportunities to speak with you. But I know our listeners tonight may know a little bit about Billy Meier, but I also want to let them know about you because you become a voice for someone who has spoken up for decades. So who's Michael Horn for our listeners out there tonight?
He reminded me of a little, I used to do New Age comedy many years ago, and I had this one little joke. When that voice inside your head says, "Who am I?" you should ask, "Who wants to know?"
Exactly.
I had Billy translate that into German for me. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember all of it except "Wer wollen wissen," I think, was "Who wants to know," and I forget the first part of it. But I guess it depends on. I don't want to bore everybody with, I was born at a very young age and proceed from there. It's more like, do you think there's anything particular anybody would want to know about somebody that they've never heard anything about? Namely me, for the most part.
You've done a lot of things, though, that you wear a lot of hats. You've worn a lot of hats, and I didn't know about the comedy.
Oh, yeah. I did that for about a dozen years.
Really?
I started in 1986. I was living in Los Angeles, the mecca of West Coast, anyhow, New Age, falderall. And I ended up going to all sorts of New Age events and channeling and people's parties in their homes with all sorts of stuff. And I ended up, out of that, crafting numerous stories and songs that I ended up doing, in some cases, concurrently with developing my career as a representative for the Billy Meier case, and independent of it as well. So the first song I wrote was called New Age Blues, and the words were, I'll just toss them at you. You got affirmations, you practice patience, you visualize and you chant, but down beneath, like a little thief, the belief still says, I can't. So you blame reality for duality. No, you blame reality, cause duality's always got something up its sleeve. Well, the joke's on you, your aura too. You better take your karma and leave. New Age Blues. Someone dropped crystal. New Age Blues. You better get a metaphysical. New Age Blues, New Age Blues. I don't want to hear about your energy. Now, while you seek enlightenment, your uptightment's been driving your friends away. In your search for meaning, your cosmic scheming, you've forgotten how to play. There's so much anxiety to your piety, you're giving love a bad name. May I suggest lower consciousness and give us all a break? New Age Blues. Hey, babe, you sell a bit still? New Age Blues. No wonder you're so miserable. New Age Blues, New Age Blues. I don't want to hear about your energy. Now, you got some real bad news. You heard that your guru's trying to get in everyone's pants. Now, what do? You're still stuck with you. Well, that's the name of this dance. But if you let love speak, you don't need technique, because love always knows the way. Stop trying to be happy. You won't feel so crappy, and everything will be okay. New Age blues. Anybody want to network? New Age blues sure it beats trying to get work. New Age blues, New Age blues. I don't want to hear about your energy, that type of thing. So that was like the first song. And then I went on to write songs like Leave Your Body Here With Me, Family Metaphysical, Earth Changes, Attitude of Gratitude about food. And I was just doing all this stuff. And so I was appearing at these New Age events doing send-ups of everything, put on send-ups,
Right.
whatever you want to. And then, of course, in 87, I had started to do my own presentations on the Meier case. And I think now that you've reminded me of it, what happened is I think I went to Hawaii for the first time in 87, and I did 2 events. One was my New Age comedy, and the other one was a presentation of the Meier case. And so over time, the more I got into doing the Meier material, and for other reasons of time and income and what have you, needing to make a living, and it wasn't going to happen with New Age comedy. So I had to get all sorts of odd jobs and what have you. I was a single father raising my daughter, initially my infant daughter, myself. So I focused more and more on the Meier material, because the more I read, the more I studied, the more I realized that this was so important that it exceeded in importance my own, creative thing. But here's the last thing I'd say about it. Only recently, in the last few weeks, I decided to start putting some songs online, and I put a couple songs online, which aren't my comedy songs. They're a little bit more introspective, about people feeling alone and this coming time for people and how banding together is necessary. And I'm going to be doing more songs and putting them up. It's very simple. I just do them on QuickTime with my guitar. But now I get to fulfill that part of it, because to be perfectly blunt, trying to reach people in the world these days, which I wake up every day and go for it every day, but people are unable, for the most part, to grasp what this is about. And they get, in my opinion, very lost in fantasies and make-believe and things that don't further awareness and evolution, and that are more, divergent little things. And in that sense, like New Age comedy and the New Age stuff gave me an opportunity to, tee off a bit on that. But I just try to bring forward what I feel is so important about, the Meier material these days.
So you covered New Age comedy very well. All the bullet points. There's some personalities there. Was anybody ever offended?
I
hope so. I'm just saying.
I was going to say, I hope so myself. The problem was that people were laughing at it so much. I think
it is funny.
That time, they were able to laugh at themselves a bit rather than take offense. Is the way it looked to me, because a lot of these things were, like, darling, you mean so much to me, you and all your entities. But when I want some love and passion, I don't want to share the action with dead Egyptians or Tibetans, outer space folks trying to get in. I can set your spirit free. Just leave your body here with me, and it was things like this. So people were, I wasn't coming at them, frankly, with the same kind of, in your face pointing fingers as I do to people involved in ufology, which to me is just a lunacy, field, and or with other things in society where we are just so off the rails, and everything is rolling along the way Billy Meier has been predicting it for decades, and people just cluelessly plunging ahead into these situations that are, in every sense, not boding well.
Right. You caught my attention with one more thing before we talk about Billy.
Sure.
What's your go-to guitar? I'm a guitar guy.
I have a triple 28 Martin that
Nice.
I got in about 1968, and I'd had
Really?
other guitars. Yeah, it's absolutely a beautiful sounding guitar. I like the balance of the guitar. It's a nice shape. It's a nice, fretboard and all of that. And I had two other Martins before that. I ended up giving guitars away. I often look back and say, what was I thinking? And I had a beautiful 12-string of some form that I think I also gave away to somebody when they needed a guitar. But I kept my 0028, and it's traveled with me around. I was homeless on the streets of New York in the late 60s, and I was singing for my supper in Greenwich Village and running into all sorts of interesting people who were in the folk scene even before that and after that. And, I thought of myself primarily, even though I'm also an award-winning painter and designer and all that, I thought of myself primarily as a singer-songwriter. And that is, in terms of my right brain, my creative thing, that is very much who and what I am. And I've written songs for 60 years. It's, I reflected on that the other day. One of the songs that I wrote 60 years ago, it's as objective as I can be. It's really a pretty good song. The lyrics are very, to me, very powerful, and the melody is very beautiful. So it's a song I'm going to get around to doing. It's just that I want to put some of the lighter-hearted stuff up in between these more introspective things. The first verse to that song, lovers we could always be, but friends beneath the spreading tree, not so easy, don't you see, when all is done and over. Do you doubt me what I've said, now that you have left my bed? Only time can clear your head when all is done and over, and time is not a lover's friend. She'll shatter every dream that could never end. She'll wilt the leaves on the spreading tree, or fade the leaves, and fade the love, that's it, you held for me. So how then shall we spend our days, together or in separate ways? There's time enough for empty days when all is done and over. And, I don't even know how I came to that when I'm 17. It's like, it was one of those things. And my father was a classical violinist, so a lot of the music that I wrote, the earlier stuff, had, flavors of classical music, very minor chord stuff and what have you. So it's a mixed bag.
I think writing is a gateway art, and the more you write, the more you tap into other art forms. I mean, definitely. I mean, anything could be any art can be a gateway art that'll propel you into something you least expected, whether it be painting or whether it be poetry or writing a novel. But once you commit to one, others follow, I believe.
Well, that you hit on something that's very interesting to me, because I started off, as a very young child, drawing and painting, and I went to a place called the Art Institute of Chicago. While I was there, I had a teacher buy one of my paintings. I had paintings in the museum show. To me, it was pretty effortless. I graduated, went to New York. I started the fashion fad of fingernail art. But then I just moved away from the painting, and people asked me, well, why have you stopped painting? Your paintings are so interesting. I said, they're not immediate enough. It'll take me, weeks, months maybe, to complete a full-size canvas, and I can sit down and write a song a lot quicker than that. Exactly. And express those, what I'm saying? So it's like, that gateway opened for me when I wanted to be more immediate in my communication, because a lot of the paintings had a lot of symbolism in them. They were very symbolic, and some of the symbolism, I didn't even know why I was painting those things into my paintings at the time. I kind of looked at them later and figured them out, but it's with words, yes, you can be symbolic and vague or what have you, but you could also be very direct and open to far less interpretation than a painting. So it just, I said to people, well, it's all creativity, just like you're in effect saying. I said, well, it's just creative energy, and I think I've got things I want to say, and it's faster. So
exactly. You're known as the authorized American media representative for Billy Meier Contacts. How did that come to be, and what does it mean? Well, it
really originally came to be because I got involved with the Billy Meier UFO Contacts when I saw the first picture book, if you will, photo book on that, really, in 1979 in a bookstore in L.A. And it was not until 21 years later, really, in 2000, that I went to Switzerland for the first of my 20 visits there to meet Meier and the other people, many other people from around the world who were there to, study the material, work with each other, get to know people. I wanted to, I was kind of cultivating this idea because I had worked with a guy named Randy Winters in 1986, 87, who at the time was making presentations on the Meier case. I had come upon that information a few years earlier and read it, and Randy'd read the same stuff. He was a very good presenter, but as a matter of fact, he used to have me come and do my New Age songs before he would do his presentation on the Meier case. But then I would sit in the audience and I would watch, and I more and more noticed that he appeared to diverge from the material as I knew it, as I had been reading and immersing myself in it. Once I had also gotten, I'd gotten 1,800 pages of transcripts in 86 and studied and studied and studied. And so when I started going to Randy's presentations around that time and thereafter for a while, I was feeling troubled by it. I thought, this is not really staying true to the material. And actually, to his credit, I said to Randy, I'd like to do some presentations of my own. And he made a carousel of Kodak slides available to me. And that was then right bordering on about 87. We had produced a film together called The Pleiadian Connection, which is still out there in circulation. And then I started to do the presentations myself. So I go to Switzerland for the first time in 2000, and I meet Meier. And I come back, and in 2004, I said, I really would like to represent you. And what I'd like to do is represent the material the way you publish it, the way you want it, with just a couple conditions. And the conditions would be these. Number one, I wouldn't ask you for any money. We don't pay each other, so that I can do it voluntarily, because people are going to attack me anyhow, saying I'm only doing it for the money. As they always, when people attack people, they have to find something. And I said, I just want to keep it real neutral, real clean. And I also want to just say that if I don't know if something is true, I won't have to say it is. And if I disagree with something, I'm free to say. He says, well, of course, you have to make up your own mind, determine the truth for yourself, which is very much, the core of the way it's dealt with. And so I said, great, let me at it. So I had already for a couple of years taken on the professional skeptics in LA at an organization called Center for Inquiry, CFI, Center for Inquiry, or CFI West, IIG or IIG West. They changed their names around, whatever. And basically, I decided I was tired of seeing stuff that I considered to be really unfair bullying by all these skeptics who were lambasting this man and accusing him of hoaxing and fraud and faking stuff. And I'd already, since 79, I could tell the difference between, lights in the sky or photos of models and the kind of stuff that Billy Meier was publishing beginning in 75 there. So I went after them, and I, demanded people I offered them, I said, listen, we could do this together, to the skeptics. I said it. We could just, discuss this, and they didn't want to. It's all a hoax. And, so we did a film that we put out in 2008, a buddy of mine and I, called Silent Revolution of Truth. And in that film, we had 3 special feature sections, and one of them made available to one of these skeptics, a guy named Derek Bartholomew from CFI West. And he did this whole thing. We let him have his whole say. He was telling us how Billy Meier was using miniature trees and model UFOs. After the film came out, he retracted it all because people pointed out how bad his analysis was, and he had to retract it. And then he did a lot of things after that were very unethical, lied about things that I said, stole the name of my website and just changed it from a .com to a .net to mislead people. So the skeptics can't handle this. And I offered to debate them all at once, anywhere. No, they don't want to mess with that. So it's not that I'm so brilliant. It's just that the Meier evidence and material is so authentic. Anybody that familiarizes themselves with it and understands and looks at the analyses and the challenges, they go, okay, this is real. Anybody can take on skeptics. So I don't even know how I got to all that, but I decided I wanted to represent Meier, and we actually created a contract in 2004, and I'm in the, I guess, latter part of the second one or in the beginning of the third, created 7-year contracts, and we keep it that way. And whenever I speak about the Meier material, when I speak about something that I cannot prove or disprove, I simply say, according to the evidence or according to the information in the case. And that way, if something could be shown to not be true, or if it gets shown to be proved to be true, then I can correct that either way. I've never had to say it's been proved not true, though.
So obviously Billy had a very long history of contact, but let's leave UFOs on the sideline for a moment and just kind of give us a look into who he really is when we don't consider the UFO element.
Sure. Well, he's a rather amazing man. Part of what's so amazing about him is that he presents himself in such a genuine, non-special way. And he's just a nice, caring human being, genuine. He speaks to everybody from the same kind of patient place. He claims that his experiences with other human beings from another star system began when he was 5 years old and have continued through this, to this day. He's done many, many, many things in his life. Amazing. 300 different occupations, if you will, traveled through 42 countries on foot. And I think I read somewhere that when he takes into account his on-foot travel and any travel in cars and buses and stuff, it was the equivalent of something like 3 million kilometers, something crazy, that he has just done all this stuff, studied many things in his life, had many experiences, some of which are incredibly brutal and painful to even think about, and others that one ponders and goes, wow, really? He's a man who has one hand. He lost his left arm in a bus accident in 1965. And he's done everything, which includes basically single-handedly renovating a rundown farmhouse and turning it into not only a home for him and his family, but for a center for people to come who want to look into this material. And I've been, as I said, I've been there 20 times. I've looked, even from the beginning, I went and looked around everywhere. Could this guy have a secret workshop where he's got high-tech stuff and making models? No, he doesn't. He's got a heck of a lot of farming equipment and, rakes and saws and hoes and tractors and you name it, because it's a high-maintenance, natural, rural environment. But nope, he's not that kind of guy. And the people that he's known for all these years are, very down-to-earth people. Literally work with the earth a lot. They're not, people who specialize in special effects and stuff. Sure, there's younger people now who come and who know more about computers and things, but long ago, for my own satisfaction, I knew this guy hasn't hoaxed the darn thing. He doesn't have to. And I troubled myself to meet the original investigators, and I've communicated with astrophysicists and experts in sound recording and photography and special effects. And I had the most interesting and challenging interaction for 3 months about 4 years ago with a man who called me up out of the blue. I don't know what you want me to tell you about right here or which way we take it, but in terms of Meier, just the most genuine, patient, you could say long-suffering, because he's somebody who, to this day, like Wikipedia, you go on there, they defame him. They say he started a religion and he's a cult. Not a word of truth. Not a word of truth. And no matter how many people go on and correct it, they have people that do nothing but defame Billy Meier on Wikipedia so that people will not find the truth. That's how insidious it is.
So literally, do you think that they meant that it was a cult, or just figuratively that he had all these followers and believers? And
no, that's what they've made it into, that because there are people. There's a person who's a rather unpleasant person who's made a career out of lying about Meier and attacking him and attacking me as well, death threats and everything. A guy named Cal Korff, who came up with this crazy thing that Billy Meier has a UFO sex cult. Well, as I say, I've been there 20 times in 20
God,
years.
if he does, let me know how he did that, because
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, it's comical, except that this guy pollutes people's minds with this just dreadful, stupid stuff.
I don't have really much to say about Cal, but go on, please.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's an anecdote. 2009. Prior to that, I had done some radio show with him, and I think kicked him around pretty good. He approaches me late October, November of 2009, says, listen, why don't we do a project together? I'll be really nice. I'm going to do the, anti or con against on Meier. It'll be very civil. I'll just present the info, and you do the pro, and we'll have 2 DVDs, and we'll package them up and put them out together. I said, well, I can look into that. I'm not somebody who carries a grudge. You want to do something and put out your point of view. And so we were discussing this, and he's starting to put up all this flowery stuff on his website. And so I sent off an email to Switzerland, and I said, ask Billy, one of my friends there who works closely with him, I said, ask him what he thinks of this. And he got back to me, he says, well, do what you do. It's your business, whatever you want to do. But then the next day, it was so funny, I got another email, which was, Michael, could you wait until tomorrow? Billy thought about this, and he decided to ask Ptah, one of the alleged extraterrestrials, to look into it. And he did, and Florena came and had a conversation with Billy, and it's all transcribed, and we think you should know about this. And I said, oh, sure. So the next day, I get a document, time, date, stamped kind of thing. And there, basically what it says is, we recommend that Michael doesn't do this for the following reasons. What he doesn't know is Cal Korff has set up an intrigue here where he's going to, in effect, try to get Michael to promote material against Billy, where he's going to load it up with all sorts of crazy stuff. And, Michael's wandering along thinking this is going to be just a nice, pro-con, he says, she says kind of thing. But this is pretty insidious, and the guy's got a whole agenda. Well, I thought, okay, I'm going to take the advice because why not? I don't need to do this. And so I wrote to Cal, I said, look, you do whatever you want to do. I'm going to not participate in this. And we went back and forth a couple of days pleading, oh, come on, dancing through the fields of flowers. As soon as he got that I wasn't going to do it, that website with all those wonderful things about me and this and working together had literally, I counted them, 300 attacks against Meier and me. All the stuff that he was going to unload in a DVD, he puts it up there. And it was so vile. It included death threats, and was so bad that I was able to get in sequence 3 different web hosting companies to take it down. After first one, they took it down. He went to another one, second, third. And that included, at least one European-based website. This was pretty nasty stuff. Now, these days, maybe nobody cares what you say and they leave things up. But in those days, in 2009, there was some decorum, I guess, some elements of decorum. And because now if people would have said, oh, yeah, ET's I said, look, they told me what was going to happen. And by doing this, Cal Korff, who attacks the case and says there's no extraterrestrial, he proved their existence. What else do we need here? So I, left that alone, and he's come forward, recently with some more defamatory stuff. He's attacking the late Lieutenant Colonel Wendell Stevens, lead investigator. He's just a guy he defames people, and he does it without cause, without substantiation, but that's his gig. So he's also helped drive a lot of people towards the Meier case who got curious. And I should add, just so that people understand, I'm not making, this is all on a website I've got, but one of the things that happened in 2000, I think it was 2006, I was at something called the Bay Area UFO Expo in Santa Clara, maybe, Northern California. And a guy came up to me and he said, you know who Cal Korff is? I said, yeah, I do, because I did know at that point. He said, I have to tell you something, and I'm not proud of it. I said, what do you mean? Well, he said, I'm the man that Cal Korff contacted to falsify the photos in his book, Spaceship from the Pleiades, to make it look like Billy Meier's photos had strings and wires. And he says, and he pulled out Cal's card, and he says, look, I've got Cal's card. He knows who I am. And this guy then wrote that whole thing up. His name is Garrett Moore. And he just, he said, I am sorry, I'm ashamed, and I'm trying to make amends because I got used in that situation. And he tells the whole thing, and we put it up on my website. So I had been, at that point, forewarned a bit, too, as to just how devious this whole agenda against Billy Meier had been conducted. And I think Cal gets support from parties that have very specific interests at higher levels to keep people away from this material, which is too bad because it's really a very suicidal thing based on the information that, we've been publishing recently.
Exactly. And I see that happen more and more. And I believe that there's a couple of things happening. There's some jealousy involved. And there's also, if you question, you're not necessarily questioning somebody's integrity, but you're questioning someone's idea or belief or whatever. And, there are a lot of people out there who think that they know, and they're the ones who came up with whatever. And so if you question that, or if you bring up something contrary, it goes against, what they've written about or what they've spoken in public about, and they don't dig that. So yeah, I've been on that list a couple times. Actually, I am right now, and it's kind of been interesting, but I just kind of ignore it. And
oh, really? From Cal or somebody?
No. Somebody, another group. But,
okay.
So, but let's go in a different direction. Somewhere in the universe, okay, there's a system of 10 planets which orbit a central sun, and that is called go.
Oh, are you alluding to the Milky, being here in the Milky Way, revolving around our little sun, or are you speaking about the galactic sun, or?
I'm talking about the sun that Billy has written about and spoken about.
Well, he's written about a number of things pertaining to a sun, the sun, or various suns. And he's, gosh, where to start? Some of it I may not even be that fluent with. I could tell you that he has described a far vaster and far older universe than we are even remotely contemplating, for the most part. Even our scientists who are thinking that the universe is 13.5 or 14 billion years of age, when Meier says the true age of this universe is closer to 47 trillion years. Now, our scientists, of course, will scoff at these things and what have you. But, I think that the problem, to a great degree, is, and this hits on something that I'll be blogging about probably next week. Scientists, for the most part, are unwilling to look at the Meier material. They give, press to a guy named Professor Avi Loeb, who talks about this Oumuamua. Yeah, Oumuamua. A hunk of space rock floating through, for which they have, no great image, nothing. But because he's a professor from Harvard, it's not that he doesn't take heat for it, but this is written about. Now, I contacted, I think it was 17 or 18 science writers who have written about Loeb and his theories in the last few weeks to even many months ago. And to each, I sent them information saying, since you've written about this, I'd like you to take a look at this singularly authentic, actual case that has what Professor Loeb doesn't, and that's known as hard evidence, independently analyzed and authenticated. I had one response from an organization, I think in Great Britain, possibly, where Avi Loeb is coincidentally doing a presentation online from somewhere tonight, and they were forwarding the information to him. Then I got one response from a young woman who's some type of a science teacher. She was kind of open-minded, but a little not so sure. Nothing else. So I sent an email. Actually, what I did is I called up one of these. I found his phone number because he posted online. One of these authors who said he's open to and interested in things about outer space and interesting things. So I called him up and I recorded that phone conversation because I figured if I get this guy on the phone, I want to have a record of it. Communications with people in the sciences and all the rest of this have been extremely unsatisfactory when they even occur because these people are monumentally arrogant and ignorant, closed-minded, and all of that. So this guy, start to tell him about this. Within 5 or 6 minutes, he tells me he's not interested. His editor won't be interested in it. He doesn't want to write. And I'm going, whoa. I do 4-hour lectures on this. I'm just getting going here. Well, no, he didn't want any part of it. So I actually wrote him, and I copied to a number of people that are kind of in an overall team of mine, stating, listen, we would like to get you to, come from. Well, this guy, actually, to his credit, he writes back, but his first sentence is, I'm a salaried writer. And right away I knew, here's another guy who's been, I don't know, what do I care whether you're salaried or not? That's your first response about looking at evidence? And he would not look at it. He would not look at any of it. And certainly if he has, he wouldn't, he certainly didn't refute anything, and he won't admit it. So I'll be blogging about this next week, and I'll be having, showing the faces and the articles, links to the articles from all these people. And my position is, wait a minute, let's just say you wrote an article about Saturn. And then there's a new discovery about Saturn a few days later or a month later, and it gets sent to you. You're not going to write about it? You just wrote about Saturn, and here's something new. Well, this didn't get spoon-fed to him by someone who's his authority, who's paying his salary, who whatever, fill in the blanks. The problem worldwide right now, people have been dumbed down so badly. They are incapable of critical thinking and discernment. They are ruled by politics and religion and whatever else you can throw in there that co-opts the individual's free thought, critical thinking, awe and interest and curiosity and courage. And I mean, this extends throughout the media, the sciences, the government, and this is one of the battles I've been having in the state of Arizona because of the COVID situation as well. So I don't hold real optimism. We are, I'll put it this way. I am not at all doubting that the prognosis from Meier and his alleged extraterrestrial friends is true. And by that, I mean, I think it is most likely true that, we've moved to this suddenly, but that this disease can ultimately, take 500 million lives, because the people who are supposedly the experts and authorities don't have a clue about the real nature of the disease. Any and all to whom I began sending this last year refused to respond and to investigate. When February 25th was the date that I published the first specific publication article from Meier and the Plejarin about the disease. And right away, this, by the way, February 25th, which was about 16 days before the WHO declares it a pandemic. Well, it was already declared a pandemic in that article. And Meier had been told it was a pandemic in November of 2019. But we had everything in there. Self-isolates, do not use mass transportation, no traveling, the need to protect oneself because it's airborne, it's transmitted on surfaces, it's spread by asymptomatic carriers, children are the main hidden spreaders, an actual incubation period can go up to 3 months, blah, 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 everything in there. They don't yet know that the incubation period can go that high, but maybe they're figuring it out. But everything in there has either been proven absolutely true, corroborated by the WHO and the CDC, verifiably after I published it, or it hasn't been determined one way or the other. And I've got over 90 plus articles where more and more information, we always publish it before the know-nothings, pardon me, at the WHO. They even said that the WHO is going to go to China. They tell us this stuff in advance. They're going to go to China, they're going to absolve everything and all, and they're going to be covering it up because this originated in a lab in Wuhan, and it was a bioweapon that was being developed. The only thing is, it was not a development of the government. It was a secret lab there, and the Chinese government didn't have anything to do with it. Obviously, they didn't because they got unleashed on their own people. So the problem here is that no matter what, and no matter how much information we put out there and send it to all these people, nothing will come back because these people have been put through an educational system that has rendered them impotent intellectually. They can do the process and they can write about things that are fed to them, but they cannot look into something that does not come to them with the blessing of whoever their authority, who's ever paying their bills. And in Arizona, let me go back because this is a hot button for me. When I published that information on February 25th, there were 57 cases in the entire United States. Later, just 8 days later, whatever it was, March 5th, I began sending information throughout Arizona to the governmental, medical, journalistic media. There were 5 cases in all of Arizona. We are climbing towards 1 million cases. We're over 790,000 cases, over 14,000 deaths, and every one of these useless, arrogant, incompetent bastards that occupy positions in media, government, and the rest of it, who have suppressed it. The only answers I ever got were, no, we're not covering this. No investigation, no challenge, no question, and people are dying by the thousands, and it's going to continue because these people are clueless and they're irresponsible sons of bitches who have on their hands the lives of the people who have passed away, who they could have at least informed and said to them, if nothing else, hey, this could be crazy, but here's this information coming from this guy here. Not a one of them would do it. And I'm working on putting a documentary together about it. It's just so overwhelmingly depressing, to be honest, that I'm sure this is ubiquitous throughout the country, but in this state, we have the dumbest people in positions of authority. I got one woman from Phoenix, ABC 15, I think an ABC station there. I called her up. I talked to her once or twice before briefly, emailed her stuff, and I was so frustrated. She seemed so clueless. I recorded a conversation with her that I put up, along with a conversation that I had with a guy from a PR company called Sission, who took an hour and 20 minutes to tell me why his company would not allow a press release from me to warn people about this. And then this clueless young woman who should be teaching children in kindergarten how to play with clay, but instead she's supposedly a reporter for a news. It's to me, I grew up at a time when there were actual real journalists, reporters, people who uncovered things, not just because it was some popular, easy thing to do, but because they dug into stories and they were willing to go there. Today, this crop of crap that we have, crap for brains, journalists and politicians and the rest of it, it doesn't bode well. And I am worried too, because I know I'm on a little soapbox now. I'll just stop with this. The younger people today don't have a reference point. Everything comes across your device. your little handheld phone, your tablet, your computer, and all the trendy crap that comes. You think that's reality, and it isn't. It's so unreal, and people don't know. It's like being a fish in water, truly. And for that, I have angst and compassion at the same time. So I'll stop.
You know, I've confessed many, many times that my attention span now is 15 seconds. Although I listen to all of that, and it's, you know, it's amazing that we're living through this. I honestly knew that, of course, you know, globally we've heard of pandemics and we've been afraid of things like Ebola. But you know, I figured we may have dodged a bullet many times, but I always felt it was just a matter of time. And you know, what was that going to look like? And now I know. And you know, I'm not digging it, Michael.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you a couple things.
It's no bueno.
No bueno, big time, because what people don't know, including the virologist, this was developed initially in the 70s as a bioweapon. It mutated many times. This is, according to the Meier material, it's a 5,000 mutation. And some time ago, it mutated with the flu virus. And there's other things about this virus and why it's so insidious that our virologists don't know. December 1st, I took some of the material that I'd already published on vaccines, and I put them out as the unknown dangers of vaccines, because the Play-Aaron told Meier, what's missing here, and with the coming vaccines, the immunologists, virologists don't understand. Blood groups are an important factor for developing an effective vaccine in this case. So are the mutations, because they also told us February 25th of last year, almost a year ago, they said this is going to become more aggressive, more dangerous. Why? Well, it's going to be mutating like crazy. And now we've got those mutations and the variants. And they said, not only that, but immune systems are different, not only between men and women, literally, but between different racial groups. Unless these three factors are really taken into account, it's a crapshoot. Maybe a vaccine works for something, but more than likely, this is going to be dreadful. And, you know, there are people dying in number. Some older people were given a particular vaccine. I think 36 people died. A doctor died from. And the vaccines are all different. Vaccines take years to develop when you're dealing with one particular pathogen. This thing is crazy. And Meier said, this isn't the only one. He was warned about this in 1948 specifically. They showed him these times. I'm just putting it out there. Nobody has to believe anything. We don't even have any beliefs here. It's just information. But this is so dangerous. And people have shown that they're too immature to grasp it. Oh, my rights and freedoms are being, the Play-Aaron said, people have to understand, in true national emergencies, and they take different forms, the rights of the individuals become subservient to the overall good of the population. You can suspend all sorts of rights because you're trying to protect everybody. But no, we've got a bunch of immature, harebrained people all over the world. I'm not going to wear a mask. I don't feel good with a mask. It's taking away my freedoms and all, and I'm a patriot, or whatever the story is. Wait a minute. There's a doctor in New York City. He did an interview with Al Jazeera. I linked to him. I've got it. He says this virus loves crowds. And he cited all the facts in the Meier material without naming Meier because he had to protect himself. But he said, this is all accurate. This source is accurate. I'm seeing it every day. He's a frontline doctor. And even I put together an online test. I put it out last September. I took 23 things, primarily the stuff that Meier had foretold, and a few things I had figured out for myself. And I made it multiple choice. Okay, here's the thing, pandemic, or it affects children or children in the womb. Now, click on this to find out when Meier published it, when we published it first in English, really, and then when it was first officially published. In every case, we published it first. So another doctor in New York found that, and he tweeted out, he says, your test is very clever. Well, what does that mean? It meant he got it. Yeah, it's clever because it's iron friggin' clad. I can walk into a courtroom with this and show, here, Your Honor, who published first? The WHO, the CDC, or my little blog? You did. You win. I've actually run that type of a thing by a judge for another matter. It wasn't about this disease. This is ironclad stuff. And this is the thing that people in your audience and elsewhere should be outraged about, that these pompous fools who've elevated themselves somehow to being in charge in all strata can ignore this, suppress it, censor it, and keep it from the public being able to know that this, here it is, look at it yourself. Anybody that takes that test, there's no fudging it. It's like, who published it first? Well, you did. Well, how's that possible? It's simple. I got it from Billy Meier, who got it from extraterrestrials. He didn't figure it all out himself. That's how simple this is. And that's how moronic and short-sighted this world of ours is. And it grieves me. It really does. It should grieve everybody.
Absolutely. Let's back up just a little bit. I don't want to miss tonight about talking about the Playaran who've been contacting Billy Meier since 1942. There must be others who shared at least some of those experiences. That's the question that I've always wanted to ask. Was
sure.
And who were they, and who shared these experiences, and talk about that a little bit.
All right. From what we know, there were contacts, I think, primarily telepathic, because that's how Billy got his first contact, with a teacher named Graf and another teacher of his, Professor Lehman, who helped young Edward Albert, and the world-famous psychologist Jung, Carl Jung, also knew that Meier was having and he met with young Meier, talked to him. He knew it was real, but he had to keep his mouth shut about it too. Other than that, there were one or two persons who had any kind of closer encounter with either the Playaran or the Timar people with Esket. Everything else, there's 5 other photographers of the craft. As of 2012, there were over 90 eyewitnesses. I'm one of them when I saw a craft in Brazil, and I checked the next week when I was in Switzerland with Billy. But there's I'd say probably about 120 people by now. And many of the 90 are multiple witnesses of multiple occasions. And Wendell Stevens, the lead investigator, apparently from what we learned, I found some photos that never before were been seen, and that was in a warehouse in where's that, Moab, Utah, and they were in Wendell Stevens' archives in the 24th of 24 boxes we went through, and there are 5 photographs. I thought they might have been from the Swiss series with the Mirage jet, but it turns out they were taken of Esket being one of Meier's second contact person, her UFO interacting with a then top secret F-117 stealth fighter over Groom Lake, Nevada in 1981. And what we learned was Wendell Stevens, the lead investigator, who we thought officially started investigating and knowing about the case in 77, had learned about Billy Meier in 69, had met him and Esket somewhere around that time, had been taken by them in 69 to Groom Lake in 81, from 69 to 81, supposedly, whatever, and took the 5 photos and was taken back to his own time. And he kept those photos, and I found them. And they're pretty amazing because they're probably the best, in one sense, they're the best UFO photos ever taken because they show a UFO and a stealth fighter, and there's no fudging it. They're clear as can be. Okay, so the Playaran people did not ever voluntarily meet with other people, with the exception, Semyaze, the third contact person, did participate with Meier, was picking up a guy named Ernst Stuhlinger, who was the right-hand man to, I think it was Werner von Braun. Was it Werner von Braun? And basically read him the riot act about concealing the truth about UFOs and other stuff. Ernst Stuhlinger was elderly at that time. He since passed away, so they were allowed to speak about it. They didn't speak about it while he was alive. They just honored that for his benefit. But the damage done by people who had any knowledge of this case and who could have helped has been pretty, severe. But other than that, nobody else is sitting down with the play on. Even Meier's family, his ex-wife accidentally walked in on one of them one day. He disappeared himself, but the children have seen the craft. All the people that have been at the center have seen the craft and stuff. But there's no contact with the people. There's no reason for it. And this is something that's very hard for people who, with all due respect to anybody, I'm abducted by extraterrestrials. You may have been, quote unquote, abducted. This is our position. But 99.9% it had nothing to do with extraterrestrials because there's no reason for extraterrestrials to come and abduct random people here. Not that in the past history, on a handful of occasions, at least according to my material, there were people taken and examined and returned, and sometimes the memory block didn't work and they remember it. But other than that, they're not abducting people and taking, our precious DNA, which is all screwed up, and trying to understand our equally screwed up emotions. There's no reason for an advanced, long-lived space-traveling race to come here and float Aunt Edna through the wall, as they usually say, or Uncle Joe out of the window and all this stuff. There are secret military operations where they do that type of thing, and that has been done deliberately to help promote fear of extraterrestrial life among people so that we will be malleable and controllable. And this whole new revelations from the Pentagon and CIA, in my opinion, are one of those setups so that if they want to twist this into a possible fake ET attack, they're laying the groundwork for it. So we have gotten, as a world, everything we need from this particular experience, these contacts with Meier, to straighten ourselves out if we have the will and the wisdom, or we can go through literally hundreds of years, which is now the more likely pattern. And what is coming is civil wars to America, as Meier foretold beginning in 81 and 87. A financial crash. Meier told me about that first in 2006. He reiterated that fairly recently, in 2017. He foretold that there would be attacks against governmental officials back then and all. There's all sorts of stuff. And it's not political. They're not political. I'm not political. I think politics makes people terribly stupid. So we as human beings on Earth are about to get the lessons that we have created over millennia by succumbing to absolutely insane religions with imaginary gods and saviors, equally insane politics that divides people up and polarizes them, where people stopped critical thinking for themselves, and bought into things, and now they can't even access information to liberate themselves for the most part, unless it's something like what we're doing tonight. Those people that will hear. Now, a lot of people say, it's crazy, that's fine. But at least we put it out there and people can decide for themselves. As I say to people, anytime I do any kind of an interaction, send me an email, challenge, question. I get around to answering it all. I'm happy to do it. Hey, if any of your listeners want, I'll send them a free movie, our free documentary, The Silent Revolution of Truth. Free. I'll download it. They send me an email. No strings attached. I don't try and sell them anything. Here, you can watch this film we filmed in 2006, we released in 2008, arguably the best UFO documentary ever made because it's got the real deal in it, the real contactee, the real films, the real photos. Okay, that's what we do. And I only wish, if you can, that we would evolve and the young people of today could remove their noses just a little bit occasionally and do a little bit of thinking and examination and challenge things. I think that is all we can ask for. This is now on the coming generations. Those of us in the older generations, we've done what we could,
Yes, I believe that to be true. The main reason the Pleiadian have come to Earth is to communicate the universal teachings of the Spirit, and
Yes.
in order to neutralize the negative effects of various religions. Who is the Spirit?
Who is the Spirit?
Yeah.
There's no. Oh, okay. Well, that's one of the things. In religions we have deities, we have gods, so we have a who created everything, because that's the way we are kind of geared to. We've been indoctrinated in that deity, the bearded god and vengeful, booming voiced god. I'm going to dip you in hot lead if you don't believe in me and all that. That is because the earlier gods, if you will, who came to Earth were more advanced space travelers who, while they had a higher level of consciousness and spiritual development, they didn't always use it. They lorded it over primitive Earth humans. They interbred, they experimented, they did very cruel things like this Jehovah, who, encouraged, basically tribes of gypsies to come together, think they were a people entitled to steal a land from other people, to take the Canaanites' land, to slay every man, woman, child, and infant in their mother's arms without mercy. This is stuff that when I started to find out about it, I was not raised religiously, but my parents, escaped the Nazis and the communists. They were regarded as Jews as far as the Nazis were concerned and all that. But they didn't raise me to believe anything. They just told me to figure it out myself. So when I cracked open the Old Testament after reading the information, beginning to read the information from, in the Meier case, about who the gods were and how cruel this being, this actual human named Jehovah was. And then, well, wait a minute, Billy asked him, is there a God? Well, we don't use that term because it always refers to these, people that were here. There is something we call the creation. The creation. Well, what's that? Well, it is the consciousness. It is the entire spiritual power and energy and consciousness that is and that self-created this universe and everything in it. It is not a being in the way that we think of it. It is actually somewhat outside of our understanding, but our task as human beings, our reason for living, is the evolution of our consciousness, so that thing that is the human spirit that is indwelling in each and every human being throughout the universe, and that reincarnates countless numbers of times in the process of evolution, eventually, after many, many unimaginably long periods of time, re-merges with this creation, this source, and becomes part of it, and yet will then birth yet another creation. Whoa, what does all that mean? Well, why don't we just chunk it down a bit? We say, for instance, Billy Meier has written 60 books, mainly about the spiritual teaching. We have a new book out, he has, on the introduction to meditation. Anybody interested in meditation and consciousness would want to have that book, because it's not a bunch of beliefs. It's not somebody's guessing. It's not New Age mumbo jumbo, because this is science. This is the science of consciousness. All of these books detail the might of the thoughts, how thinking works, how the immutable law of cause and effect cannot be bypassed, and delivers unfailingly the effects, the consequences of human thoughts to feelings to actions. That's what's creating our individual lives and world. And I mean, his books are brilliant, and they are books that get read and reread and reread, because his words are direct, they're clear, and yet you have to keep rereading to go, wait a minute, what does that really mean? How is this? How is that? So I would just say the spiritual teaching is, as you mentioned, Cam, it's the core purpose of this whole thing with the 7 prophets in this lineage, that they came to Earth to work with the Pleiadian and their ancestors to bring forward the true teaching, the spiritual teaching of the creation, not originated with any deity or any person. And Meier has said himself, much of this I am not the author of. I am able to tap in and get it as it was created, and if you will, written by the creation, and I bring it down word for word without changing anything, so it isn't corrupted. In the past, the spiritual teaching has been corrupted over and over. Hence, we have Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and many other offshoots of religions that are just, there you go. So that's the perspective. Now, is that the truth? Find out for yourselves. I would say that anybody that would get any book, and by the way, there's a ton of free information, spiritual teaching. It's on my original website, which is theyfly.com. We discussed lots more about it on theyflyblog.com. And you don't have to buy it. I'm not here to make you buy anything. I'll give you the free film if you want to write for it. And this is so that you can decide for yourself, because nobody else is telling you about the truth as we see it. Not maybe the only source where the truth exists, but we're telling the truth. You have to decide if that's so for yourself. But good golly, if you get your education strictly from everything that you're exposed to digitally, online, and all the rest of this stuff, going to go nuts. So I would say that is the most important thing we could turn to during these times when the polarization will increase more and more. And there is, probably not to go into politics tonight, but there are things coming unfailingly that are going to be very unpleasant in our country and others, and to build our consciousness, to see how each thought we create and the feeling that arises and how we think about that and what we do with that creates our life individually. Like you were talking about earlier at the beginning of the show, being, are you home? Are you sequestered? Listen, most people in some way, shape, or form have to be pretty much, sequestered in their home or living space, whatever you want to call it. What's better than learning how life works and how you're not imprisoned, even if you have to be in your home? You're not imprisoned. Your consciousness is free to create the life you want and the quality of thoughts and feelings. And even the relationships, while you might think, well, how can I have that? Well, we do have means of reaching each other. And if we're speaking the same language, if we develop a better understanding, our relationships, if they're face-to-face or not in person that way, but maybe just digital, whatever, through emails, we can communicate, we can grow, we can evolve, and we can be free, because we're not ruled by every blowing wind of political insanity or frightening messages from religious fanatics of any stripe. We're free to think for ourselves. If you adopt a belief you like, that's up to you. But we must learn to be free and treasure that, because love, peace, freedom, and harmony are the cornerstones of what the whole Billy Meier UFO case is about. It's not about UFOs. That's simply the ships they came in.
And it's a good reminder. The truth is out there. Figure out how to find some. You don't have to find it all. Decide for yourself, because nobody else will tell you. Michael Horn has been my guest, and he is the authorized American media representative with Billy Meier Contact. Find him online at www.theyfly.com or www.theyflyblog.com. Michael Horn, thank you so much.
Thank you, Cam. Much appreciated.
You can find my website at www.myalienlifepodcast.com, and please subscribe to my latest downloads at iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and at podbean.com. And please follow me and like me on Facebook and Twitter. My Alien Life is written and produced for broadcast at Studio 254 in the Northern Rocky Mountains. The music you are hearing is produced and created by Elion. You can find all Elion's work online at Heart Dance Records.